having a couple of drinks or even 3 drinks after the second dose, you'd be fine.
I wonder how good, does it matter the quality of the champagne?
Yeah.
How strong is your drink?
Yeah. You did tick off something in passing about the earlier concerns, not just about alcohol, but Tylenol. I think Advil was another one. Have most of those concerns been put to rest?
Most have been put to rest. The only thing that's really been an issue is the use of steroids, and we've had to turn a couple of patients away that were given steroids right before their vaccine, and that's the only one that has continued to remain, that if you are on steroids, I mean, you can still get the vaccine, but we're not sure about what kind of a response your body's going to have to it.
And what happens after? Can they take the steroids afterwards?
Well, if they absolutely need to, yes.
When we were on,
refrain. The only reason you would the only time you were using steroids after the vaccine was if you had an allergic reaction, or we did see a lot of it with Moderna and women who used fillers, Restylane, etc. in their face. They would have allergic reaction in their face where it would blow up, and then we would use the steroids to help suppress that.
When we were on the painkiller thing, going back and forth a few weeks or a few months ago, I don't know, they were saying, do it afterwards if you need to. Don't try to pre-up this. Is that still the same kind of idea? If you're worried about side effects, wait until they actually show up. Don't pop a pill and then go in.
Absolutely, because most times, first of all, what's the side effect, and secondly, how severe is it? Is it something you cannot tolerate, or is it something that, really needs to be treated? And that's what I've told patients, especially with the COVID arm, that we saw a lot of after the Moderna vaccine was, the redness that developed. Okay, does it need to be treated? Is it bothering you at any, in any way, shape, or form with itching, redness, swelling? Only then would I suggest, taking some Benadryl or a steroid too.
right, and since you brought up things like steroids and prednisone, people who take, because they have, I guess, arthritis, whatever, steroids on a regular basis, is there a time limit or time period when after the vaccination they can go back to it?
Well, generally 2 weeks. But a lot of patients who are on chronic steroids is usually through their rheumatologist. Most rheumatologists see the dose would be so low if you're on chronic steroids that it would not necessarily interfere. And I've not had a single patient who's been on chronic steroids been told not to get the vaccination.
Dr. Anita Gorwara, family medicine physician, director of the urgent care province St. John's in Santa Monica.
Well, it is a full-blown COVID crisis in India, one of the most populous countries in the world, and we should all be concerned because in the end it could have an impact on all of us. Now the news in brief, here's Karen Allen.
Thanks, Charles. One school district in Orange County has partnered with a prominent medical group to encourage more students to get the virus shot.
After months of vaccine hesitancy, 16-year-old Diego here in Anaheim convinced his mom and his twin sister Julian it's time to get vaccinated.
Ryan, if you get the vaccine,
School year's ending, might as well get it before next school year starts. We sat down to eat. I said,
they decided together and I said, okay.
Vaccinations for students and their families who haven't yet received the shot are a collaboration between UCI Health and the Anaheim Union School District.
I've had the pleasure to speak to these parents both in English and Spanish town halls, re-educating them again about the Pfizer vaccine.
Dr. Jose Mayorga with UCI Health, he told PNX that they expect to be able to vaccinate perhaps thousands of Anaheim Union public school students before the next school year begins. In Anaheim, Craig Figner, PNX 1070 News Radio.
An LA County Sheriff's motorcycle deputy has suffered severe injuries in a head-on collision with a big rig in the Santa Clarita area. Sheriff Alex Villanueva says the truck made a left turn this morning at Creekside and McBean Parkway and hit the deputy. The big rig driver failing to yield to the oncoming traffic.
He's currently transported to the local hospital. He's in critical condition, and the only good news, he's in stable condition. But it's going to be a long road to recovery, and our thoughts and prayers to him and his family.
TV video shows the mangled motorcycle partially wedged under the front of the big rig. The city of LA will create a public messaging campaign to combat hate speech against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. The Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department will work with AAPI artists on messaging. The LAPD says hate crimes against the AAPI community increased by 114% in 2020. The motion passed City Council unanimously. Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins has died at the age of 90. He orbited the moon alone while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made their historic first steps on the moon in 1969. Collins' family said in a statement the astronaut died today from cancer while Collins traveled some 238,000 miles to the moon and came within 69 miles. He never set foot on the surface. Collins spent the 8-day mission piloting the command module Columbia. And it was a down day at the markets. The Dow down 164.5, NASDAQ down 39, and the S&P down 3.5. It's 1:35. Back to KNX in depth in just a moment. But time to check the bad drives out there. Here's Tom Tran.
Northbound side on the 110, we've got a crash at Manchester Avenue. A couple of vehicles involved in this one. They are blocking the number 1 and number 2 lanes. We'll CHP is holding those lanes. Trying to clear these vehicles out of the way. The backup solid at Century Boulevard. Let's get past lost as things start to clear up. It will slow again as you approach the Santa Monica Freeway. It's stay busy right up towards the Hollywood Freeway. Southbound side of the 110, little busy over here at Dodger Stadium. Let's check in with Brian Douglas, taking a look at a bad crash over on 215. Southern California Toyota dealers 215 jam.
Multi-calls about this. Thank you very much. Multi-vehicle. This is southbound side right at Iowa. This involved a truck, several cars. We had the right lane, 2 left block. They're making quick work of it here. I'm watching this from our jam cam. Just the 2 left lane. I'm sorry, the carpool lane blocked at this point. 1 car to clear. It's still a backup though. That's southbound side of 215. Expect delays shortly past the 10.
Northbound side of the 605 at the 60. Got another accident here. 2 vehicles involved in this one. Trying to clear off its shoulder. You see a little bit of slowing as you approach the 60. Your next report, 145. More reports more often. Tom Tran, the CarsonToyota.com 24-hour traffic center. KNX 1070 News Radio.
This is KNX In Depth. He's Mike Simpson. I'm Charles Feldman.
Death toll from coronavirus infections in India has passed 200,000, although almost everyone believes this is a dramatic undercount of the toll that COVID has taken. They're approaching 400,000 new cases a day there, and even as the country's opened up the vaccine eligibility to all adults, the vaccination effort as a whole is moving very slowly.
And while you may be thinking that, well, India is far away and we're doing much better here in the U.S. when it comes to the coronavirus, why should we worry? Well, what happens in India matters to us a great deal. Dr. Bharat Jha is a professor of global health at the University of Toronto and an epidemiologist at Unity Health Toronto. So, Doctor, thanks for being back with us. So can you explain for people here who think, well, it's really awful what's happening in India, but we're okay in the U.S., why maybe we won't be okay in the U.S.?
Well, the virus is a global problem and it needs a global solution. And I think the India tragedy that's unfolding teaches us a few things. One, that any country that thinks, well, they'll have one wave and then after that they won't have a recurrence, is really mistaken. That's what happened in India. They had a big wave in September, and it came down, and then lots of Indians thought we're vaccinated on the cheap because the infection was widespread. And it turns out that was completely wrong. A new variant that is more infectious really has bit India hard. But this has global implications, as you say. First, if India's scenario doesn't improve, then it's a big producer of vaccines. So many parts of the world, not necessarily the U.S., but Africa, Latin America won't necessarily get their vaccines because they won't let it get exported. The second is we know that if you've got uncontrolled epidemics, then they do create conditions for variants. And so far, the vaccines that are used in North America seem to work pretty well against most of the variants. But there might be something further along that is more resistant, so our vaccinations may not be as effective. And then more broadly, you can't imagine a world where we're thinking everything is, the U.S. is growing economically, but a sixth of it is in a really terrible state, and the country is closed. That just creates the kind of conditions, instability conditions, a civil strife that eventually breeds terrorism, which creates global instability. So we have the current progress, only 20% of Indians would have got a vaccine, and that's not enough to ward off another wave. So it means the proper choices. They have to expand vaccination, but I think what India will need to do is to get much better data, because now there's suggestions that if you target vaccines to hotspots, the highest risk and to hotspot neighborhoods, you get better bang for the vaccine. And for that, you need a lot better data on where the infections, where the deaths, and so forth. So it's really a tough scenario for the next few months. And in India, right now, people are just on their own. They're fighting for trying to get oxygen, trying to keep their sick relatives from not having to go to the hospital, because there really are no hospital beds in some of the cities. And that misery, I'm very sad to say, will continue for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then hopefully, if the signs are accurate, it will get better.
Brazil, of course, has been another hot spot. Do we know what progress, if any, they're making there? Because the same